Get lost, old man. You people don't belong here. The racist words hit Samuel Washington like a slap. The 67-year-old black veteran had politely asked to share the public bench in front of Elena's cafe. Derek Mitchell, sprawled across the entire seat, sneered with pure hatred. "Please, young man, I just need to rest my—" Derek's fist exploded into Sam's chest. The elderly man crumpled backward, his head striking the metal trash can with a sickening thud. "Stay down, old man. That's where trash belongs." Derek stood over Sam's crumpled body, flexing his knuckles. The lunch crowd froze in horror. Some pulled out phones. Others looked away in shame. Sam's worn military jacket bore a faded Korean war patch. His Purple Heart pin glinted in the sunlight as he struggled to breathe. But Derek Mitchell had no idea who he'd just destroyed, or who was about to destroy him back. The morning had started with such promise for Samuel Washington. At 6 a.m. sharp, he'd pressed his only good shirt, frayed at the collar but spotless. His worn dress shoes gleamed from the careful polish he'd applied the night before. Military habits die hard, even 30 years after hanging up the uniform. The reflection in his bathroom mirror showed an aging man, but one who still carried himself with dignity. Gray stubble covered cheeks marked by time and hardship. The Purple Heart pin on his jacket lapel caught the morning light, a reminder of Heartbreak Ridge and sacrifices most people could never understand. The VA hospital visit was routine. Pick up heart medications. Check in with Dr. Martinez about the shrapnel still lodged in his left leg from Incheon. Same hallway conversations with other veterans about benefits cuts and waiting lists. Same crowded waiting room filled with men whose best years had been given to their country. But today felt different. Today he had somewhere important to be. His grandson, Marcus Jr., was graduating from Navy boot camp, 22 years old, following in the family tradition. Sam's chest swelled with pride as he thought about the ceremony invitation tucked safely in his jacket pocket. 3 generations of Washington men serving their country, a legacy worth more than money. The real surprise was the phone call from his son, Marcus Sr. "Dad, I'm in Chicago for a few days. Want to meet Marcus Jr. together at the recruiting station? He's been asking about his grandfather. I want to hear war stories from the real deal." Sam hadn't seen his boy in 18 months. Work kept Commander Marcus Washington busy wherever Navy SEALs got deployed. Sam never asked for details, some things a father didn't need to know. The less he worried, the better he slept. Walking toward the bus stop, Sam felt lighter than he had in years. His Social Security check barely covered rent and medication, but today wasn't about money. Today was about family, about legacy, about showing his grandson that Washington men served with honor, no matter the cost. The bench in front of Elena's cafe had become his usual rest stop during longer walks. The Latina woman who owned the place always smiled through the window. Sometimes she'd bring him coffee on cold mornings, refusing his attempts to pay. "For my abuelo," she'd say, reminding him of her grandfather who'd also served in Vietnam. Elena Rodriguez had noticed Sam's routine months ago. Always polite, always grateful, always leaving a $1 tip despite counting change from his pocket like every penny mattered. She'd learned his story gradually through brief conversations. Korean War veteran, postal worker for 30 years, lived alone in a studio apartment 6 blocks away. But today, Derek Mitchell had claimed the bench like conquered territory. Derek's phone conversation echoed across the sidewalk, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm telling you, man, this diversity bullshit is why I got fired. Some young punk straight out of college gets the promotion because he checks their boxes. 20 years I worked construction, and they gave it to some kid who probably never held real tools." His voice dripped with resentment as tourists and business people hurried past, avoiding eye contact. Derek continued his tirade, oblivious to the discomfort he was creating. Empty beer bottles from the night before sat at his feet, evidence of how he'd been processing his unemployment. Political correctness is destroying this country. Used to be a man could speak his mind without worrying about offending every minority group. Now they have quotas for everything, veterans getting pushed aside for people who never earned their place. The irony was lost on Derek. A real veteran stood just 20 feet away, needing nothing more than a place to sit. Derek's appearance told its own story. Unshaven for days, construction boots caked with dried mud, a faded baseball cap pulled low over bloodshot eyes. The eviction notice sticking out of his back pocket suggested his problems ran deeper than unemployment. Elena watched from behind her cafe counter, grinding coffee beans with increasing intensity. She recognized the signs of a man looking for someone to blame, someone weaker to take his frustration out on. Her security cameras captured everything happening on the sidewalk, high-definition video with crystal-clear audio. Derek's aggressive posturing made other customers uncomfortable. A young mother with a stroller changed direction rather than walk past him. An elderly businessman crossed the street entirely. The bench was public property, but Derek's territorial behavior created an invisible barrier of intimidation. "Excuse me, sir?" An older woman had approached tentatively. "Would it be possible to share that bench? My legs aren't what they used to be." Derek barely glanced up. "Bench is taken, lady. Try somewhere else." The woman's face flushed with embarrassment as she shuffled away. Elena's jaw tightened. She'd seen enough bullying for one morning. But she also knew confronting Derek directly might escalate things dangerously. Sam's phone buzzed insistently in his jacket pocket. The caller ID showed Marcus W., don't answer during mission. But the calls kept coming. Marcus had left 3 voicemails already, something about arriving early, about meeting at the recruiting station in 30 minutes instead of noon. But Sam couldn't reach his phone while standing. The arthritis in his hip made balancing difficult, and the morning medications left him slightly unsteady. He needed to sit down, check the message, maybe call his son back. The bench Derek occupied was the only seating for 2 blocks in either direction. What Derek didn't know was that the old man approaching his bench carried scars from Heartbreak Ridge, that the purple heart pin on his jacket wasn't costume jewelry, that the son calling repeatedly held rank Derek couldn't even pronounce. Derek Mitchell was about to receive an education in respect, one that would cost him far more than he could imagine. As Sam approached the bench with careful, measured steps, Derek's phone rang again. This time he answered with theatrical annoyance. "What now? Can't a man sit in peace?" Elena moved closer to her window, sensing trouble brewing on her doorstep. Sam approached the bench with the careful steps of a man whose body had endured more than its share of battles. His worn leather shoes made soft sounds against the concrete as he cleared his throat politely. "Excuse me, young man. Would it be possible for an old man to sit down? I've been walking for quite some time, and I just need to rest my legs for a moment." Derek's head snapped up from his phone, eyes narrowing as he took in Sam's appearance, the faded military jacket, the careful posture despite obvious pain, the respectful tone that somehow made Derek feel smaller. "What makes you think you can just walk up and demand my seat?" Derek's voice carried an edge that made nearby pedestrians slow their pace to listen. Sam blinked in surprise at the hostility. "I wasn't demanding anything, son. I was just asking if there might be room for both of us. It's a public bench, after all." "Son?" Derek's voice rose dangerously. "I'm not your son, old man, and just because it's public doesn't mean you get to waltz over here and take what I'm using." Elena pressed closer to her cafe window, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone. Something ugly was building in Derek's voice, a tone she'd heard before from men looking for an excuse to explode. "I served this country for 3 years," Sam said quietly, maintaining his dignity even as the conversation turned hostile. "I'm just asking for a little courtesy. Surely we can share—" "Served?" Derek's laugh was cruel and mocking. "Let me guess. Mopped floors at some base cafeteria? Maybe drove a supply truck? Real soldiers don't beg for handouts on street corners." The words hit Sam like physical blows. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "I fought in Korea, young man, at Heartbreak Ridge. I was wounded saving my platoon." "Korea?" Derek stood up now, his size advantage immediately apparent. "That was like 100 years ago. What have you done lately besides take up space and expect special treatment?" Sam's medication bag slipped slightly in his trembling hand. Whether from age, medication, or controlled anger, it was impossible to tell. The small plastic bottle rattled softly as his grip adjusted. Derek's eyes fixed on the bag like a predator spotting weakness. "What's in there, Grandpa? Pain pills, antidepressants? Let me guess. The government pays for those too." "They're heart medications," Sam replied simply. "I need them to—" Derek's hand shot out and knocked the bag from Sam's grasp. White pills scattered across the sidewalk like tiny pearls rolling toward the gutter. Several people gasped audibly. Oops! Derek's grin was vicious. Butterfingers. Sam stared at his medication spreading across the dirty concrete. Each pill represented days of careful budgeting, insurance negotiations, pharmacy trips that exhausted him. Without them, his damaged heart would struggle to maintain its irregular rhythm. "Those are my heart medications," Sam said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need them to live." "Should have thought about that before bothering me." Derek deliberately stepped on several pills, grinding them into powder under his boot heel. "Maybe this will teach you some manners." Sam slowly, painfully began to kneel on the concrete. His arthritic knees protested as he reached for the remaining pills, his purple heart pin catching the sunlight as he bent forward. "Look at him crawling around like a dog," Derek announced to anyone within earshot. "This is what happens when people don't know their place." Elena had seen enough. She burst through her cafe door, but Derek was already moving. "You want to get down on the ground like an animal?" Derek's voice carried pure hatred. "Then stay down where you belong." His fist drove into Sam's chest with the force of 20 years of construction work behind it. The elderly veteran's body folded around the impact like paper. He crashed backward into the metal trash can, his head striking the rim with a sound that made witnesses wince. Sam slumped to the sidewalk, blood trickling from a cut on his scalp. His breathing came in short, painful gasps as he tried to process what had just happened. "That's what happens when you don't respect your betters," Derek said, flexing his knuckles with satisfaction. "Maybe next time you'll think twice about bothering decent people." The lunch crowd stood frozen in shock. Phones appeared in hands throughout the gathering crowd, some recording, others calling 911. Elena dropped to her knees beside Sam, her face pale with fury and fear. "Mr. Washington, can you hear me?" Sam's eyes struggled to focus. His worn military jacket was now stained with blood and dirt. The Purple Heart pin lay askew, still catching the light despite everything. Derek looked around at the shocked faces surrounding him, suddenly aware that dozens of people had witnessed his attack on an elderly veteran. But it was too late to take it back now. Elena knelt beside Sam, her voice urgent but gentle. "Mr. Washington, stay still. I'm calling an ambulance." Derek towered over them both, his initial satisfaction quickly morphing into defensive aggression as more people stopped to stare. "Hey, lady, back off. This isn't your business. You just attacked an elderly man." Elena's voice shook with fury. "In front of my cafe. This is absolutely my business." Derek stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. "The old guy was harassing customers. I was just maintaining order. Maybe you should worry about serving coffee instead of playing hero." A security guard from the nearby office building jogged over, slightly out of breath. He took in the scene. Sam bleeding on the ground, Derek standing aggressively, Elena trying to help, a growing crowd of onlookers. "What's going on here?" The guard's voice lacked authority, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Derek immediately shifted into victim mode, his tone becoming reasonable and concerned. Thank God someone with sense showed up. This old man was aggressively panhandling, blocking the bench, refusing to move when asked politely. When I tried to reason with him, he became combative. The security guard glanced nervously between Derek's imposing frame and Sam's crumpled form. "Sir, are you okay?" he asked Sam, but Derek cut off any response. "He's fine. Just making a scene for attention. You know how these people get when they don't get their way." Elena's head whipped up. "These people? What exactly do you mean by that?" Derek's eyes hardened. "I mean troublemakers who think the world owes them something. Professional victims looking for a payday." The crowd's murmur grew uglier. Several people had their phones out, recording everything. A young businessman called out, "I saw what happened. This guy attacked him unprovoked." Derek spun toward the voice. "You saw what you wanted to see. I was defending myself against an aggressive panhandler. Unless you want to be next, I suggest you mind your own business." The threat hung in the air like smoke. The businessman stepped back, suddenly less confident about speaking up. Officer Patricia Carter's patrol car pulled up to the curb, blue lights flashing. She emerged with the practiced efficiency of 15 years on the force. immediately assessing the scene. Her gaze swept from Sam on the ground to Derek's aggressive stance to the nervous crowd. "I got a call about an assault. Who wants to tell me what happened?" Derek was ready. "Officer, thank God you're here. This man was causing a disturbance, aggressively demanding my seat, getting in people's faces. When he wouldn't back down, I had to defend myself. Barely touched him, and he went down like a sack of potatoes, probably trying to set up an insurance scam." Officer Carter knelt beside Sam, checking his injuries while listening. "Sir, can you tell me your side?" Sam tried to speak, but Derek's voice overrode him. "Look at him, officer. Guy can barely string 2 words together. Probably confused, maybe on drugs. Could be dangerous if he gets agitated again." "Let him speak," Officer Carter said firmly, but Derek continued his manipulation. "I work construction, officer. I know how to handle myself, but I showed restraint. Could have really hurt the old guy if I'd wanted to. You can see I'm not even breathing hard." Elena stood up, fury radiating from her small frame. "Officer, I witnessed everything from inside my cafe. This man brutally attacked Mr. Washington without provocation. I have security cameras that recorded the entire incident." Derek's confident expression flickered for just a moment before reasserting itself. "She was inside, officer, couldn't see the full picture, and I know where she works now." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Elena felt a chill run down her spine, but she pressed on. "Mr. Washington is a regular customer. He's always polite, always respectful. This animal destroyed his heart medication and then assaulted him." "Animal?" Derek's voice rose dangerously. "That's hate speech, officer. I'm the victim of prejudice here. First the old man harassed me, now this woman is making threats." Other witnesses began shifting uncomfortably. Derek's intimidation was working. People who had been ready to speak up suddenly found reasons to look at their phones or hurry away. "It's always the same story, right, officer?" Derek continued. "Hard-working Americans get blamed for everything. We can't even sit on a public bench without being accused of crimes." Sam's phone buzzed insistently in his jacket pocket. The sound seemed unusually loud in the tense atmosphere. Officer Carter noticed. "Sir, is that your phone?" Sam nodded weakly, still struggling to speak clearly after the blow to his chest. "Answer it if you can," Officer Carter instructed. "Might be family wondering where you are," Derek interjected quickly. "Probably calling his drug dealer, or his lawyer. These people always have lawyers on speed dial." Sam's hand trembled as he reached for his phone, but Derek stepped closer. "Officer, shouldn't you be searching him for weapons? Guy was acting erratically before, could be armed." The intimidation continued working. A woman who had started to approach with her own video evidence suddenly changed direction. A teenager who'd captured the entire assault on his phone suddenly became very interested in a store window. Officer Carter noticed the witnesses melting away. "Did anyone else see what happened here?" A few people nodded, but when Derek turned his cold stare on them, they suddenly remembered urgent appointments elsewhere. "See, officer? No one saw any assault because there wasn't one. Just an unfortunate accident after this man became aggressive." Sam's phone kept buzzing. The caller ID clearly showed Marcus W. Don't answer during mission, but the calls were becoming more frequent, more urgent. Elena refused to be intimidated. "Officer, my security cameras captured everything. High-definition video and audio. This man is lying." Derek's mask slipped again. "Those cameras probably don't work. And even if they did, they'd show me defending myself against an aggressive vagrant." "Mr. Washington isn't a vagrant," Elena shot back. "He's a Korean War veteran with a Purple Heart. He was attacked for asking to share a public bench." "Stolen valor," Derek said dismissively. "Half these guys claiming to be veterans never saw combat. Probably bought that pin at a pawn shop." The insult to Sam's service hit like another physical blow. Even in his dazed state, Sam's eyes flashed with pain that went beyond his physical injuries. Officer Carter studied Derek's demeanor carefully. 15 years of police work had taught her to recognize certain patterns. The casual threats, the way witnesses seemed afraid to speak up, the practiced way Derek controlled the narrative. But she also saw Sam's genuine military bearing, even while injured. The way Elena spoke about him with obvious respect and familiarity. The expensive-looking security camera mounted above the cafe entrance. Derek sensed her skepticism and doubled down. "Officer, I'm a tax-paying citizen who was just trying to rest after a hard day looking for work. This man targeted me for harassment, and when I stood my ground, he made it physical." Sam's phone buzzed again. This time, the caller didn't hang up. The ringtone continued, unusually persistent. "Answer your phone, sir," Officer Carter said gently to Sam. Derek moved to block Sam's access to his jacket pocket. "He's probably in shock, officer. Might not be thinking clearly. It could be dangerous to let him make calls right now." But something in Derek's sudden urgency to prevent the phone call made Officer Carter suspicious. "Step back, sir. Let him answer his phone." Sam's trembling hand finally reached his jacket pocket. The phone continued its insistent buzzing as his fingers struggled to find the answer button. Derek watched with growing nervousness as Sam finally managed to swipe the screen. What Derek didn't know was that the phone had been answered, and someone had been listening to everything. "Dad! Dad, are you there? I heard everything!" The voice from Sam's phone cut through the air like a blade, clear, authoritative, and absolutely furious. Derek's confident expression faltered for the first time. "Who is that?" Sam looked up at his phone screen with weak relief. "Marcus? I'm here, Dad. I'm 2 blocks away. I heard that piece of garbage attack you." Derek's face went pale. "Wait, what? You were listening?" The voice from the phone grew harder, carrying the unmistakable authority of command. "Every word, every threat, every lie you just told that police officer." Officer Carter stepped closer, her interest piqued. She recognized military bearing when she heard it, even through a phone speaker. "Sir, who am I speaking with?" "This is Commander Marcus Washington, United States Navy. The man you're investigating just brutally assaulted my father, a decorated Korean War veteran, and then lied to law enforcement about it." Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. His construction worker swagger evaporated instantly. "Commander? Navy? You're lying. You're making this up." "The phone was on speaker mode in my car," Marcus's voice continued through the device, each word measured and deadly. "I've been listening for the past 10 minutes while driving to your location. I heard you destroy his heart medication. I heard you punch a 67-year-old veteran. I heard you threaten witnesses." The color drained completely from Derek's face. His earlier bravado evaporated like steam in winter air. "Look, man, I didn't know. I mean, it wasn't like that." "You didn't know what?" The voice from the phone was ice-cold fury wrapped in military discipline. "That he was human, that he deserved basic respect, that assaulting senior citizens is a federal crime when they're veterans?" Elena's hands flew to her mouth. "Mr. Washington, your son is a Navy commander?" Through the phone speaker, "Navy SEAL commander, ma'am. And I want every person in that crowd to understand something. What they just witnessed was a hate crime against a Purple Heart recipient who earned his medal saving American lives." Derek's legs seemed unsteady. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air. "This is all a misunderstanding. You were just what? Defending yourself against a 67-year-old man with a heart condition? Is that your story now?" A black SUV pulled up behind Officer Carter's patrol car with military precision. The door opened and a man in civilian clothes stepped out. He moved with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to life-or-death situations, his eyes scanning the crowd with professional assessment. Even in civilian clothes, everything about Marcus Washington screamed military authority. His posture, his gait, the way his eyes immediately went to his father's injuries while simultaneously cataloging every person in the area as potential threats or witnesses. "Dad." Marcus knelt beside Sam, his voice transforming from command authority to gentle concern. "I'm here." Sam's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Marcus, I was coming to meet you at the recruiting station. To see Marcus Jr. graduate. I know, Dad. We'll get there together." Marcus looked up at Officer Carter, his expression respectful but commanding. "Officer, I need to present my identification and provide testimony about what I witnessed through audio surveillance." He reached into his jacket with deliberate movements and produced a military ID card. Officer Carter examined it carefully, her eyebrows rising as she read the credentials and security clearances listed. "Commander Washington?" she said formally, straightening unconsciously. "Sir?" Derek was backing away slowly, finally understanding the magnitude of his mistake. His construction boots scraped against the concrete as he tried to put distance between himself and this new threat. "Look, if I'd known he was military family, if someone had told me—" Marcus stood slowly, his full attention turning to Derek for the first time. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. When Navy SEALs focus their attention on you, you felt it in your bones. If you'd known what? Does attacking elderly veterans have consequences? That your actions have witnesses? That the law applies to unemployed construction workers too? Derek's voice cracked like a teenager's. I didn't mean to hurt him. It was just a misunderstanding between neighbors. A misunderstanding. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Derek the screen with its active call timer. This phone has been recording everything for the past 15 minutes. Your threats to witnesses, your lies to law enforcement, your unprovoked attack on my father. Elena stepped forward, emboldened by Marcus's commanding presence. Commander Washington, I have security footage of the entire assault. High-definition video showing him punching your father and destroying his medication. I'd like to review that footage immediately, Officer Carter said to Elena. Of course, it's crystal clear. Shows him deliberately knocking the medication from Mr. Washington's hands, stepping on the pills like they were garbage, then punching him in the chest hard enough to knock him down. Derek looked around desperately. The crowd that had been intimidated into silence moments earlier was now pressing closer, phones openly recording, voices rising in support of Sam. I want to see that footage personally, Officer Carter stated firmly. A young businessman pushed forward. Officer, I recorded the whole thing on my phone too. Want to see? I got it from another angle, called out a woman with a stroller. Derek spun around frantically as witness after witness stepped forward with evidence. You people are all lying. This is some kind of setup, some military conspiracy. Marcus stepped closer to Derek, close enough that Derek could see the cold fury in his eyes. His voice was deadly quiet, the kind of calm that preceded extreme violence. No, Officer Carter is taking our side because you committed multiple crimes in broad daylight. My rank doesn't make my father more worthy of respect. His humanity should have been enough for that. The crowd murmured loud agreement. People who had been too afraid to speak up earlier suddenly found their courage when backed by legitimate authority. I recorded the whole thing, called out the young woman again. He attacked that poor man for absolutely no reason. I saw it too, shouted the businessman. Completely unprovoked assault on a senior citizen. He threatened me when I tried to help, Elena added. Said he knew where I worked. Derek spun around frantically as witness after witness stepped forward. His face was flushed red with panic and embarrassment. You people are all lying. This is a setup, some kind of military cover-up. A setup? Marcus's voice carried a dangerous edge that made Derek step backward involuntarily. Did we set up your unemployment? Your eviction notice? Your decision to take out your personal failures on an innocent veteran? Derek's mouth gaped open. How do you know about... How could you possibly... The eviction notice is sticking out of your back pocket. Your breath reeks of alcohol at 2 in the afternoon. Your behavior screams of a man looking for someone weaker to blame for his problems. Marcus gestured toward Derek's disheveled appearance. Unshaven for days. Clothes wrinkled like you slept in them. Empty beer bottles at your feet. This isn't about my father. This is about you being a failure looking for someone to hurt. Officer Carter stepped between them before Derek could respond. Mr. Mitchell, I need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back. What? Why? I'm the victim here. I was defending myself. Sir, based on multiple witness testimonies, video evidence from several sources, an audio recording of the incident, you're under arrest for aggravated assault on a military veteran, destruction of property, intimidation of witnesses, and providing false information to law enforcement. Derek's voice rose to a near shriek. This is insane! You can't arrest me for defending myself against an aggressive vagrant! Marcus spoke to Officer Carter while keeping his eyes locked on Derek. Officer, under federal law, assault on a military veteran carries enhanced penalties. I'd like to ensure those charges are filed appropriately through both local and federal jurisdictions. Of course, Commander. We'll coordinate with the appropriate federal authorities. As Officer Carter moved to handcuff Derek, he made one final desperate play, his voice breaking with panic. Wait, I can explain everything. I was having the worst day of my life. I lost my job. I'm facing eviction. My girlfriend left me. I just snapped. Marcus's expression didn't soften 1 degree. My father has faced poverty, discrimination, and serious medical challenges for years. He's never once used personal hardship as an excuse to hurt another human being. I didn't know he was a veteran. I didn't know about his son. You shouldn't have needed to know either of those things. Basic human decency should have been enough to prevent you from assaulting a 67-year-old man. Derek's hands were cuffed behind his back as he continued protesting, his voice getting higher and more desperate. This isn't fair! I made one mistake! Everyone deserves a second chance in America! Elena spoke up from where she knelt beside Sam, her voice carrying across the now silent crowd. Mr. Washington gives dollar tips when he can barely afford coffee. He holds doors open for strangers. He says thank you for every small kindness. That's what second chances look like. They're earned through consistent character, not demanded after committing violence. The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause that echoed off the surrounding buildings. Derek's face crumpled as the reality of his situation finally hit him full force. Commander Washington, Officer Carter said formally, I'll need your complete statement for the police report. Of course, officer. But first, I need to get my father proper medical attention and ensure his injuries are documented for the prosecution. Marcus helped Sam to his feet with practiced gentleness. Dad, let's get you checked out. Make sure that head injury isn't more serious than it looks. Sam leaned heavily on his son's strong arm. I'm sorry you had to see your old man get pushed around like that, son. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion and pride. Dad, you handled that situation with more dignity and grace than most people half your age would have shown. I'm honored to be your son. As Derek was loaded into the patrol car, he made one last outburst through the window, his voice muffled but still audible. This isn't over. You think you're better than me because of some military uniform? Marcus walked calmly to the patrol car window, his voice carrying easily to the surrounding crowd. No, Derek, we're better than you because of how we choose to treat other people. The car door slammed shut, cutting off Derek's response and sealing his fate. The patrol car disappeared around the corner, taking Derek Mitchell toward a future that would include jail time, community service, and a criminal record that would follow him for years. The crowd began to disperse, but the conversations continued in small groups, people sharing their own stories of witnessing injustice, making promises to speak up next time instead of staying silent. Elena appeared beside Marcus and Sam with a first aid kit and a bottle of water. Mr. Washington, please sit down inside my cafe. Let me properly clean that cut on your head. You're very kind, Elena. Thank you for everything you did today. Marcus looked around at the remaining witnesses, many still holding their phones with recorded evidence. I want to thank everyone who stepped forward today. Your courage to speak the truth matters more than you know. A teenage boy approached hesitantly, his phone still in his hand. Commander, I posted the video online. It already has like 50,000 shares in 10 minutes. People are really angry about what happened to your dad. Marcus nodded gravely. Good. Sometimes the world needs to see these things. But remember, this isn't about going viral or getting internet famous. It's about standing up for people who can't defend themselves. Inside Elena's cafe, the atmosphere felt safe and warm after the chaos outside. Elena gently cleaned the cut on Sam's scalp, while Marcus called for a proper medical evaluation. The paramedics will be here in 5 minutes, Dad, just to make sure you don't have a concussion. Sam's phone buzzed with a new message. He smiled weakly as he read it. Marcus Jr. says he saw the video online. Says he'll wait for us at the recruiting station as long as it takes. Says he's proud to have a grandfather who served with honor. Marcus helped his father settle into a comfortable chair. Come on, Dad. Let's get you checked out properly before we meet your grandson. 3 generations of Washington men, all serving with dignity. Elena brought over a cup of coffee and a sandwich. On the house, Mr. Washington, forever. Other cafe customers approached tentatively. An elderly woman touched Sam's hand gently. Sir, I want to apologize for not helping earlier. I was scared, but that's no excuse. Sam's response was gracious despite his pain. Ma'am, fear is natural. What matters is that you found your courage when it counted. A businessman who had recorded the incident approached Marcus. Commander, I've sent my video to 3 news stations and the mayor's office. This kind of thing has been happening too often in our city. I appreciate that, sir. Accountability matters. Officer Carter returned with a thick folder of paperwork. Commander Washington, I'll need both your statement and your father's when he's feeling up to it. We're charging Mr. Mitchell with aggravated assault, destruction of property, intimidation of witnesses, and filing a false police report. What kind of sentence is he looking at? Marcus asked. With his prior arrests for public intoxication and the federal enhancement for assaulting a veteran, probably 6 months in county jail, 2 years probation, and 500 hours of community service. Elena looked up from organizing her first aid supplies. I hope they make him do that community service at a veterans center. Maybe he'll learn something about the people he attacked. That's actually not a bad idea, Officer Carter replied. I'll mention it to the prosecutor. The paramedics arrived and performed a thorough examination of Sam's injuries. Minor concussion, some bruising, but nothing requiring hospitalization. They recommended rest and follow-up with his regular doctor. As the medical team packed up their equipment, Sam looked around the cafe at all the people who had supported him. You know, when I was lying on that sidewalk, I thought about giving up. About how maybe Derek was right. Maybe old veterans like me don't matter anymore. Marcus's jaw tightened. Dad, don't ever think that. But then I heard your voice on that phone, son, and I saw Elena rush out to help me, and I watched all these strangers find their courage to speak up. It reminded me that goodness still exists in this world. A young mother with a stroller approached their table. Mr. Washington, I recorded part of what happened, but more importantly, I want my children to know your story, about service, about dignity, about standing up for what's right. Sam's eyes brightened despite his exhaustion. What are their names? This is Sarah. She's 8. And this is David. He's 5. Sam leaned forward gently. Sarah and David, your mama is raising you right. Always remember to help people who need help, okay? The children nodded solemnly, understanding that something important had happened, even if they didn't fully grasp the details. Elena's security footage had been copied to multiple devices and was already being reviewed by prosecutors. The evidence was overwhelming. Derek's attack was captured from 3 different angles, with crystal-clear audio of his threats and lies. The district attorney's office wants to make this a priority case, Officer Carter informed them. This kind of hate-motivated violence against veterans sends a message to the whole community. Marcus checked his watch. Dad, Marcus Jr. TS graduation ceremony starts in 2 hours. Do you feel up to going? Sam straightened his shoulders with visible effort. Son, I wouldn't miss it for the world. My grandson is about to become a Navy man. That's worth celebrating. Elena packed a bag with sandwiches and coffee for their journey. For the road. And Mr. Washington? You come back here anytime. You'll always have friends at Elena's cafe. As they prepared to leave, Sam noticed Derek's scattered beer bottles still on the sidewalk where he'd been sitting. Without being asked, Marcus picked them up and disposed of them properly. Dad, let me ask you something. If Derek had simply asked you to share the bench politely, what would you have done? Sam smiled, despite his bruises. I would have been happy to share. There was room for both of us. That's the difference between a man with character and a man without it. The taxi Marcus had called pulled up outside. As they walked toward it, the remaining crowd spontaneously began applauding again. Sam raised his hand in a small wave, acknowledging their support with quiet dignity. Commander Washington, called out the businessman who had recorded everything. I'm posting this story on LinkedIn. The world needs to know what real heroism looks like. Marcus helped his father into the taxi. Thank you all. But remember, the real heroes are the people who speak up every day against injustice, even when there's no camera recording. As the taxi pulled away toward the Navy recruiting station, Elena watched from her cafe window. She thought about her grandfather, who had served in Vietnam and faced similar discrimination when he returned home. Today felt like a small victory for all the veterans who had been overlooked or mistreated. The bench in front of her cafe sat empty now, waiting for the next person who needed a place to rest. And Elena made a silent promise that anyone who needed help outside her establishment would find it, regardless of their age, race, or circumstances. Some battles are won not with weapons, but with the courage to do what's right. 6 months later, Derek Mitchell stood in the hallway of the Chicago Veterans Affairs Medical Center, wearing an orange community service vest and holding a mop bucket. His anger had been replaced by something harder to define, shame mixed with the beginning of understanding. He'd spent 180 days in county jail with plenty of time to think about the 15 minutes that changed his life. The viral video had been viewed over 50 million times. His name had become synonymous with cowardice and bullying. Job interviews ended the moment employers Googled his name. But the real education came during his court-mandated community service at the VA center where Samuel Washington received his care. "Mitchell, you're assigned to Mr. Peterson in room 304 today," the supervisor announced. "He's a Vietnam veteran bilateral amputee. I need help with physical therapy equipment." Derek had learned not to argue. 5 months of working alongside veterans had taught him things that 20 years of resentment never could. These weren't the entitled welfare recipients he'd imagined. They were men and women who had sacrificed pieces of themselves, literally and figuratively, for people like him. At 2 p.m., Derek was cleaning windows in the main lobby when Samuel Washington walked through the front doors for his weekly appointment. Their eyes met across the room. Derek's first instinct was to look away, to pretend he hadn't seen the man whose life he'd tried to destroy. But something in Sam's calm expression made him stop. Sam approached slowly, his healing complete but his dignity unchanged. "How are you doing, son?" The kindness in that simple question nearly broke Derek. After everything he'd done, the assault, the lies, the public humiliation, this man was asking about his well-being. I'm learning, Mr. Washington, learning about what service really means." Sam nodded thoughtfully. "And what have you learned?" Derek set down his cleaning supplies. "That I was angry at the wrong people, that my problems weren't your fault, that respect isn't something you take, it's something you earn. Those are hard lessons for anyone to learn. I want to apologize, really apologize, not because the court ordered it, but because I was wrong, about you, about veterans, about what strength actually looks like." Sam extended his hand. "Then today's a good day for both of us, Derek." The handshake lasted longer than necessary. When Derek looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "Mr. Washington, would it be okay if I learned more about your service, about Korea? I never knew what veterans went through." Sam smiled. "I'd be honored to share that with you, son." The video of Samuel Washington's assault had become more than just another viral moment. It sparked conversations in communities across America about how we treat our veterans, our elderly, and each other. According to the Department of Veterans Affairs, veterans face discrimination and harassment at rates 23% higher than the general population. They return from serving our country only to be treated as invisible by the very people they protected. But Sam's story proved that change is possible. One person, one conversation, one moment of courage at a time. Elena's Cafe became an unofficial gathering place for veterans in the neighborhood. She partnered with local veteran organizations to provide free meals on holidays. The bench outside her cafe now bears a small plaque, reserved for those who need rest. All are welcome. Marcus Jr. graduated from Navy boot camp with his grandfather and father watching proudly from the audience. 3 generations of service, each building on the legacy of the last. The recruiting station where they met that day now displays Sam's story as part of their community outreach program. Young recruits learn about service that extends far beyond military duty, service to community, to family, to the basic principle that we are all responsible for protecting each other's dignity. Commander Marcus Washington returned to active duty, but not before ensuring his father's story reached the right people. The assault led to new federal legislation increasing penalties for hate crimes against veterans and expanding support services for elderly veterans facing discrimination. But the most important change happened in individual hearts and minds. Every day in every community there are Samuel Washingtons walking among us. Veterans who served with honor, now just trying to live with dignity. They don't wear signs announcing their service. They don't demand special treatment. They ask only for basic human respect. The next time you see an elderly person being disrespected, a veteran being ignored, or anyone being bullied for being different, you have a choice. You can be Derek Mitchell before his awakening, spreading cruelty because your own life feels out of control. You can be the silent bystander, enabling injustice through inaction. Or you can be Elena Rodriguez, finding the courage to stand up for what's right. You can be Marcus Washington, using your voice and privilege to protect the vulnerable. You can be Samuel Washington, meeting hatred with dignity and showing the world what real strength looks like. Which will you choose? The video of Sam's assault was viewed 50 million times, but more importantly, it changed 50 million minds about what happens when we look away from injustice. Every act of kindness is a victory against cruelty. Every moment of courage inspires another. Every person who chooses dignity over hatred makes the world a little better. What will your moment be? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell us in the comments about a time you stood up for someone who couldn't defend themselves. And remember, the most powerful force in the world isn't violence or hatred. It's ordinary people choosing to do extraordinary good. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances. Subscribe to Black Soul Stories if you want to see more stories about real heroes. And share this with anyone who needs a reminder that dignity and respect aren't luxuries, they're human rights. What's your story of standing up for what's right?